So I've noticed a few videos on this topic on YouTube, but I like to make them as short as possible for our attention spans since they're all weakening across the country, across the world really. But this is an EVGA 750 watt that I got from a friend that I'm using for a new build, and the fan is quite noisy. Let's fire this little Spirit Power test bench box up, and you can hear it's loud from the get-go, and then over time it actually starts rattling, kind of sounding like it's hitting the inside of the enclosure, but this fan bearing is just screwed. So it's not only loud now, but it gets much worse. So if you're noticing any bad fan performance at all or any loud noises, it's a good idea to just replace it. So we're gonna take this apart, throw in another fan, wire it up, and fix that issue. Closet. How many fans do you have in the closet? Well, we have to see what size fan this is. Usually they're 140 millimeter. Let's just double check. So let's go ahead and shut this off and unplug everything. Let's go ahead and take this, set it aside, and we're gonna take out these screws. Now EVGA decided to be difficult. Use Allen head screws, that's fine. I have those. Most of them are gonna be Phillips head, so don't worry too much. We've got this taken out. This is actually a very nice 750 BQ. Pretty decent anyway, semi-modular. Most power supplies are not gonna be this difficult, but this one not only has these 4 holding in the fan, but also has 4 even tinier screws to remove the lid. Looks like it's been removed once already. The warranty sticker's broken, so I'm gonna find some really tiny Allen keys because the first 4 screws we're gonna need to get off are on the edges, and then we'll take the 4 out to get the fan out of here. I had to put this on holding it back to some other work, but I found a little Allen key to take these out. So I'm just gonna slowly but surely take out these 4 screws, set them aside, and do this. So with those 4 screws off, you're just gonna carefully pry underneath the lid with your fingernails or a screwdriver, and I only have one hand, so I can't really do it while holding my camera, but this will lift up this whole U-shaped lid. We'll take that off and get into the components inside. Perfect, so that just lifts right off. And now usually, just depending on how old your power supply is, you can dust this out. This is actually in pretty good condition, but I might still give it a spray with some compressed air. And here's our fan. Yeah, even just spinning it, I can hear that the bearing is worn out. It's also just very tough to turn, so we definitely need to replace that. You can usually take these pieces of plastic off, they're just protective. So I often do that just for a little more airflow. They do block dust from hitting the back where the power plug is, so if you do decide to keep it, it is a safety feature. It's not really necessary though. So we're gonna take these 4 screws out, replace this fan, find one that fits. Usually it would be smart to buy one off of eBay that is ready to go, because these power supply fans only have 2 pins. I usually just wire a regular case fan, which I will show you how I do. And yeah, we'll get that replaced. So just make sure to disconnect the fan. Usually there's a little bit of glue. Oftentimes there's actually not. And it should just pry out of place. It's often on the motherboard, which is vertical. This one's sideways. It's got a little fan controller there. But yeah, very simple. So power supply should not usually be this difficult, but the screws were actually stripped for this guy. So I had to break off the fan and do quite a bit of work using a lot of different Allen wrenches to get that out. So we're definitely going to replace those with just some regular Phillips head screws. EVGA, I love them. They make great quality parts, but sometimes with quality comes unnecessary difficulty. So anyway, this is a 140 millimeter fan. Most PSU fans are. Let's go find one to replace it with. So make sure just that whatever fan you do buy, usually you don't want like a chunky frame like this. This up here fan has a very thick frame. It might not fit very well, but always just spin them, make sure they spin freely. No noise, no rattling, that's how it should be. And then, yeah, we'll find one that fits well. It's a difficult choice because I currently have 3 perfect pairs of these fans, and pairs I will probably use in a PC build, but I'm the least likely to use these old Corsair ones because they're not black. Usually use all black fans if I'm not doing RGB. So, we'll go with this guy. So super simple, just line up those fan holes. Make sure if it did have a grill like this, that you put it back over those holes above the fan, place it back up there, screw it in. I can't do that on camera, but I'll do it real quick with YouTube magic. Okay, so once your new fan is installed with your case screws, and of course you can reuse the original ones, I just chose to use new ones. You can use some compressed air or just spin it from behind with your finger just to make sure that nothing is touching anything. It's not making any noise. It's dead silent as it was intended. Perfect. This can even be an upgrade in some cases. Oftentimes, the fans used are very cheap. Teflon nano bearing by jet motor? Yeah. Not impressive at all. Look how quickly that stops. So, regardless of this being a cheap, crappy fan, remember to save this cable, because we're going to be reusing it. If you're using a case fan for this, yeah, we're going to need to splice some wires. Should be very simple. You can just use electrical tape or duct tape. Soldering is always better, but these fans aren't really that high of amperage, so usually tape and just twisting the wires together works just fine. So I'm going to be doing that next, so we can wire this thing back up. So depending on whether or not you have a 3 or 4 pin connector, I have a 3 here. You'll need to look up a fan wire diagram on Google Images. Very easy to find, but if you have a 3 like this, it's super simple. Judging from this way, the back of the connector, the far left is the ground, and the middle is the positive red cable, and then the far right is a sensor cable, which we don't need. We only need the black and red wire. So in this case, the far left is the black wire, and the middle one is the red wire. So we're going to cut this off and just wire those up real quick. Okay, so I've got these wired together. As you can see, just twist it up. You'll really know once this is done if you got this right, as long as the fan spins in the right direction, which is to push air down. Pretty confident I got this one right. So we're going to cover each side with its own respective tape them together. Let's do that real quick. So you definitely don't want to use painter's tape. Use electrical tape, duct tape, even shipping tape. I'm sure the haters will come for me, but this is all I had on my desk. So we're gonna take these two together and tuck this all away. At such a low voltage and amperage, it's really nothing to worry about. So make sure to plug this back in, and then while it's taken apart still, I'm going to turn this power supply on with a little jumper wire that I have. Otherwise, to test it, you're gonna need to plug it into a motherboard. I'm just gonna fire it up, make sure the fan spins, and make sure it's spinning in the right direction, and that I got the wiring right, and then I will put it all back together after I plug this in with 2 hands. I just had it backwards. There we go. Perfect. So, got a little jumper cable. I'll plug this in. We'll see what happens. All right, with this jumper, I should just have to flip the power switch for it to turn on. Yep. Cool. This fan is silent. It is spinning in the right direction. Now it's just a matter of tucking this cable out of the way. You can kind of wrap it around the fan and then tuck it to the side so that it doesn't ever get stuck in the blades, because that will be a much louder sound. But we are good to go. The cable isn't warm or anything like that. Everything looks perfect here. So when putting this back on, just make sure that the sides are pressed in so that they can slot back into place. This is how most power supplies are designed, if not all. And it just sandwiches back together. We use our 4 screws. Make sure you don't do what I just did, which is too much slack hanging out of the side. We'll tuck that back inside. And then screw this up. Not screw this up as in screwed up. I mean, just screw it back together. All right, congratulations. If you did everything as I showed you, you now have a PSU with a brand new fan that works perfectly and may even be better or more powerful, or just better at cooling than your last one was. So I hope this helped you. Let me know below if it did. It's a very simple job, and I hope you get it. Take care.